Hello, and welcome to NorthPoint Thrive's Week 1, Understanding Risk and Resilience. In getting started, we'd like to review the program goal for NorthPoint Thrives. Our primary goal is to provide useful information and strategies to promote resilience for staff during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's topic is risk and resilience. And today's topic will set the stage for the remaining 11 sessions of NorthPoint Thrives. Our big idea for today is employing personal strength strategies, we're going to call these resiliency blocks, at the right frequency, we're going to call this spacing, and amount, we're going to call this dosing, is necessary to positively adjust to change and respond to adversity. In further considering this idea of resiliency blocks, I find that this visual from the Centers for the Developing Child at Harvard is quite helpful in understanding the relationship between risk and resilience. You see, it's a lot like a teeter-totter or a fulcrum, where you have risk blocks on one side and resiliency blocks on the other side. Our goal, any given day, is to have more resiliency blocks than risk blocks. Risk blocks are anything that impedes your ability to adjust to change and respond to adversity, whereas resiliency blocks are anything that helps you to positively adjust to change and respond to adversity. I'd like to also highlight at this time that this is a day-to-day balancing act. This isn't just I've achieved some balance and this sustains, especially in light of the current COVID-19 pandemic. Each day offers some new risk factors and hopefully also offers some new opportunities to either utilize or develop resiliency blocks. Let's spend some time further exploring risk blocks. Again, these are anything that impede your ability to adjust to change and respond to adversities. Generally speaking, we've known of a lot of risk factors. These include genetic or pre-existing concerns, toxic stress and anxiety, disruptions to sleep, diet, exercise, or other routines, substance abuse, and grief and loss, to name a few. These are all factors that make it difficult for us to adjust to some of the changes that come our ways. I'd like to spend some time now focusing on some COVID-19 specific factors, though, as these have intensified or added to some of the risk blocks we're all experiencing day to day. Some of these things include things like fear of contamination at work or in the community, fear of having and spreading the disease to friends, family, and others. Ever-changing work processes. It's quite remarkable how many processes have already changed for all of us in our day-to-day work. And unfortunately, as things progress, we'll continue to experience these changes in our workplace. Disruptions to our routines at home and our schedules, children being schooled at home, challenges in summer routines to come, modified or forfeited traditions, things like graduations, birthdays, funerals, all taking a very different form than maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And grief and loss become more complicated by all of these factors. Uncertainty regarding the longevity of the pandemic looms over us as well, as we just don't know how long will these changes be in place. What are the changes to come next? These are all concerns that are worth noting and recognizing these fall into the risk block category. Let's transition into talking about resiliency blocks. These are anything that help you to positively adjust to change and respond to adversity. These are essentially what the remaining 11 weeks of NorthPoint Thrives are all about, seeking to foster the development or utilization of resiliency blocks. Things like effective coping skills, positive thinking, connection with others, establishing routines, maintaining sleep, diet, exercise, and exploring concepts like self-compassion and gratitude. As was shared earlier, we talked about the relationship between risk and resilience blocks, seeking to have resiliency blocks outweigh risk blocks. However, for some of us, any given day, we may find that risk blocks are outweighing resiliency blocks, and this is going to show up in a number of different ways. Some indicators for us to be aware of are being able to check in with our physical, emotional, behavioral, cognitive, and social well-being. Physically, I'd like to particularly point out chronic exhaustion and sleep problems being quite prevalent for many. Emotionally, a whole mix of emotions, but particularly anxiety, sadness, anger, grief, and even hopelessness. Behaviorally, be aware of irritability, angry outbursts, and increased risk for alcohol or substance abuse. Cognitively, be aware of being stuck on something, having intrusive thoughts about things that you've heard, seen, or been told, nightmares, or a general sense of pessimism. And socially, you may see this come in the form of job dissatisfaction, problems with empathizing or connecting with others, and interpersonal conflict, to name a few. Having now further explored both risk and resiliency blocks and understanding the relationship between the two and our well-being, I'd like to return back to the big idea of the day. And that was that utilizing personal strength strategies, we're calling those resiliency blocks, at the right frequency and amount can lead to positive outcomes, can lead to positively adjusting to the stressors and adversities faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. And with that being said, this becomes the basis of the next 11 weeks of programming for NorthPoint Thrives. We will be exploring various resiliency blocks and encouraging you to consider, is this something that will help you regulate and better perform? And if so, how often would you like to utilize these resources, and how much of these resources will you need? Always understanding that it's a continuous balancing act. Some days are going to be better than other days. Some days we may need a little bit more of whatever it is to help us to regulate, and some days a little less. This is personal to you, but this becomes the basis of our NorthPoint Thrives program, and we hope that you'll find it useful. As we move to closing today's session, I'd like to highlight what's coming up next. Next week, we're going to move into exploring what are bottom-up strategies for regulation and how to utilize these. That will transition to some work in the area of gratitude, which transitions into self-compassion and setting realistic goals. Week 5, we move into developing and sustaining routines, followed by looking at sleep, diet, exercise, and movement. Week 9 brings with it what's thinking got to do with it, an exploration of the power of your thought. Week 10 moves into grief and loss, followed by a lighter note, laughter, and finally closing out and finding meaning and purpose in these times. In closing, all of us working on NorthPoint Thrives would like to thank you for taking the time to check out Session 1 on risk and resilience. We hope that this has been of benefit and informative for you, and we also hope that you'll tune in for the following 11 sessions, taking what's helpful and leaving the rest. With that, until next time, be well.